Hey everyone, welcome back to this week's episode of Getting In. We've had a couple of really great conversations this week about getting ready for those early action submissions, talking a little bit about example essays and why maybe they're not the best thing to use when you're writing your own college essay. But because we are in October and because paying for college is on everybody's mind, we want to talk a little bit about one of the biggest words in financing your education, which is merit. And in order to do that, I'm welcoming my colleague, Tara Piantanita Kelly. Hey, Tara, welcome to the show.
Hi, Ian.
It's good to have you back. Now, I merit, before I get into the questions, I got some big questions to ask you here about merit. I had heard that merit was a particular term that was affiliated with the National Merit Program. And like you can't actually say merit for broad scholarship. But what do we mean when we talk about merit aid? Because families ask about it all the time.
Right, right. So merit aid really is just a form of financial aid that is not based on a student's demonstrated financial need. So it could be based on their academics or their athletics or their, artistic ability. So it's pretty much free money that is not based on finances.
Okay, that sounds nice. I would like to get some of that.
Me too.
So I think we see a lot of families that will say, I don't qualify for financial aid when we start talking about financial aid. And we have to say, whoa, 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 whoa. Financial aid doesn't necessarily depend on qualifying because there are these two buckets, right? So, what then are we telling families who are interested in finding scholarship money through this merit route? What's the initial just primer that you give them so that they understand these two categories of aid pretty well?
Well, it's funny that you use the term buckets because that's exactly the term I
Oh,
use.
great. Perfect.
Imagine, that you're applying to a college. These colleges have different buckets of money. Like
Okay.
they might have a need-based grant bucket that's based all on the family's finances, and most schools will also have a merit bucket, which is kind of everything else that is not based on need.
Mm-hmm.
So we when a family says, number one, what they say, we don't qualify for financial aid, and I'm saying, well, the federal direct loan, you can borrow that, your student can borrow that whether you make $1 million or zero. So that's not quite accurate, but maybe you just don't qualify for any need-based grant aid, free money based on need. So if that's the case, then it just means you shift your focus and look for merit aid from a school.
Okay. And now merit aid is not something that's broadly available. I know that when I was working at Reed, we got questions all the time in our information sessions about merit aid, and I had to tell them we only do need-based financial aid here at Reed College. And I think a lot of schools are in that boat, but it seems to me that more often than not, schools do offer some sort of merit aid. Is that a fair assumption that it's a tool that's used at most schools, but maybe not the schools that people want it to be available at?
Right. So many schools offer some form of merit aid. There's a handful of the most highly selective schools, the Ivy, Stanford, Reed, that they say, they give a lot of money, but it's all based on demonstrated financial need.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk a little bit about why and why they do that and why they don't offer merit, but other schools do. Um, so we can kind of delve into that. But the biggest source of merit scholarships, and I use the term merit aid, merit scholarships, all interchangeably means the same thing for me, based on this what we're talking about today. So we can talk about, okay, well, if we don't qualify for any of that need-based bucket of money, where do we find the schools where that have that merit-based bucket of money that I might be able to get some?
Yeah, yeah. And so these highly selective schools, they're not offering merit. And I remember reading a book and like within the first page, it said something about this person's background. It was like she got a full ride to Columbia. She was super, and it was just like, no, that doesn't exist. Get that out of your book. So like people believe that you can get a full ride to Stanford, and that's based on financial need exclusively. There is no merit aid that's associated with that program. Now, a lot of people will say, give me a list of all the schools that offer merit aid. You get that question, I think, sometimes, don't you?
Yes.
Pretty often. So that list doesn't exist, right? That would be $1 million idea. So what do people actually need to do if they want to identify whether a particular college offers merit aid or not?
Yeah, so people are so disappointed when I say that database does not exist. All
Yeah.
school, it just doesn't. Just because, and if we tried to put it together, by the time we finished it, it would be out of date already because schools can change. There's just really no way to do that. So it's a manual process. If a student is saying, well, I'm looking at these schools, and they name some schools, I'm going to say, well, you need to go on each one of those schools' websites, do a search for merit aid, merit scholarships, kind of follow that, see if they offer any. If they do, what are the criteria? Do they list what the criteria is, or are they just kind of vague, saying, oh, we give these scholarships? And also, do they require any additional application or essay or anything else the student needs to do in order to be considered for them? And then finally, take a look to see if they offer merit aid, if there are any earlier deadlines that you
Mhm.
have to meet in order to be considered. So a little bit of research before, at this point, can yield bigger results. I've heard
Yeah.
of people just missing merit opportunities just because they didn't realize there was an additional application or earlier deadline.
Those deadlines can totally catch you by surprise because you're thinking, all right, I'm going to apply regular decision. The school doesn't offer early action, but you overlook a priority deadline or a scholarship deadline or something along those lines, where I know USC is a great example. They've got a later regular decision deadline, but they have a December 1st priority deadline if you want to be considered for scholarships, period. And so if you don't apply by that date, you're not going to be considered for scholarships. So that's absolutely something you want to look into. I don't think that the priority deadlines will ever come in advance of an early action deadline, at least not that I've seen, but they will sometimes be quite a bit earlier than regular decision deadlines. So keep an eye out for that.
Absolutely.
Now, merit aid is not automatic. It's meritorious, right? Like you earn it because of certain aspects or attributes that you have in your profile. So a school might offer merit aid, but I still might not get any money from that school.
Right.
How do I identify whether a school is going to be interested in giving me an incentive to choose them based on the information that's available on the website?
Okay, perfect. Yes. So in order to answer that, we're going to talk a little bit, merit aid theory. So
Great.
think of merit aid from the school's perspective. Let's say you're a school and you have this bucket of merit money and you get to decide who to give that to, right?
Okay.
So essentially what it is the school is offering a discount to a particular student in the form of merit aid. That's really
Mm-hmm.
all it is. It's because that particular student has something that the school wants. Maybe it's great academics, maybe it's, musical talent, maybe it's athletic ability, something. So in order to kind of identify what those schools are that might give, the student some merit scholarships, you're going to take a look at the different aspects of the school. Like, for instance, let's say my son Peyton is applying to 9 different schools, and 3 of them are what we would call challenge schools or reach schools, where he has not a great chance of even being offered admission. The next 3 are just right schools. He'll probably get offered admission. He's kind of the typical student there. And then the last one is what you might call a safety school. We call it a no problem school, and that's the school where not only does he have a really good shot of being offered admission, he's going to score toward the top of that school's applicant pool, and
Right.
those are the students that they tend to offer the merit scholarships to. So imagine like you're one of the admissions professionals at one of his challenge schools, and you take a look at his admissions application, and you notice that his record is lower than most of the students in your applicant pool. Are you going to be really motivated to offer him a discount to enroll? Maybe not. But
Right.
let's say now you're an admissions reader on the at one of his no problem schools, and you see that his admissions information is higher than most of the students at your school. Now you're much more motivated to say, hey, we want you, and we're willing to offer you this discount for you to come here instead of go to that other school.
Yeah, if you think about it from a competitive perspective, a school and a challenge school might say, look, we're probably the best school this kid's going to get into. I mean, like realistically speaking, because they're the bottom of our profile. And so we don't need to give them an extra reason to choose us. They're just going to say, that's the best school that I got into. Now, I would disagree that challenging schools are better than no problem or just right schools. But I think a lot of families will perceive it to be structured in that way. I love the idea of calling the no problem schools financial safeties, because if they do offer merit scholarships, there is some safety there with respect to the financial process, because they're much more likely to want to say, hey, we're going to give you a generous scholarship. We want to have you on our campus because you're going to help lift the discourse on campus. You're going to be one of the smarter students in class, and that's going to make our whole institution better.
Yep. Yeah, well, like I, for instance, went to college on a combination of academic and music scholarships. So this particular, my school said, hey, we need a good flute player, and Tara was all state, so let's see if we can, talk her into coming to our school so she can play
Yeah.
in our symphonic band. It worked. I'm like, all right, I'll go to your school at a reduced price. That works for me. So I had something that they wanted
Right.
in the form of this musical talent, but academics, it by far is the much bigger driver for merit scholarships.
And these can change. I mean, like institutions can have different priorities. They might have a new president that comes in and says, we're going to try and beef up our music program. Or they might come in and say, we've got enough flute players. Now we're going to try and make our theater program stronger. We've got a reputation in flute now because Tara came here and was so fantastic. Now everybody wants to play flute at our institution, right? So these things will fluctuate. But the idea is that colleges are assembling their classes and they want certain kinds of students with different talents to come and be a part of that class. And a merit scholarship is one way for them to be able to do that. With the most selective schools, the ones that don't offer merit scholarships, they get to sort of hand select what that class looks like. They already have their pick from among a really, really deep applicant pool. And that's why those merit scholarships aren't as important to them. And they don't offer them at all. Now, you talked about a 3-3-3 kind of distribution, which I think is a nice normal distribution across a college list. 3 that you're confident in, 3 that are right in the middle, 3 that are going to be reaches and less likely. Sometimes we'll have conversations though with parents who are saying, well, I want a little bit more financial safety. I want to feel like I've got multiple offers in my back pocket. What kind of advice do you give them as they're rounding out that list? And what is another good reason to apply to more schools that are going to offer merit aid and to look for more schools that are going to offer merit aid?
Yes, there's definitely a strategy there for sure that we'll talk about. So now I just lost my train of thought. If you need some more merit schools with merit aid, so yeah, it just apply to more of those schools that are, what did you call them, financial safety schools?
Financial safety schools, yeah.
Yep. And the thought is, so let's say you, instead of applying to 3, you apply to 6, and let's say you get into all 6, and 5 of them give you nice merit scholarships to say, hey, come here.
That's great.
Instead.
That's
then
great.
You can go back and ask all of them to see if they could take say, hey, gosh, can these other schools gave me, a bigger merit award, making it easier to go there. Can you take a second look and maybe increase the merit scholarships that you offered me so I can come to your school instead? So, try to negotiate with them. Now, that being said, not every school will do that. Some schools will just say, nope, we don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it's no harm, no foul. There's no downside to doing that. And at least now you haven't left any money on the table, right? But it never really hurts if you have multiple scholarship offers from multiple schools. That can be a way to kind of leverage some additional scholarship dollars.
So having a few more offers can help you potentially to get more money from the school that you're going to prioritize within that group. Now, can you negotiate with a school that didn't offer you any merit aid because they don't offer merit aid and say, hey, look, these other schools gave me merit aid. Can you amend your offer and give me some funding? What happens if you ask that question?
So like if you were to go to Stanford and say, hey, these other schools gave me merit money, Stanford's going to say, good on you, mate. We don't offer any. We can't, sorry.
Yeah. That's great. Choose the other school or pick us.
Right.
Right.
Come to us and pay full price, or go to the other school and pay less. It's your choice.
That's right. Okay. Well, this is great. And I think a great reminder for families of one of the smart ways to balance out that list. It's not just about safety in terms of whether you're going to get in, but also thinking about the cost of attendance, because once you've got those offers and you have to pay for it, then it really gets real, doesn't it?
It really gets real. Yes.
All right, Tara, thanks a lot for coming and walking us through this segment today. I know it's going to be a real popular one with our listeners. So thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Ian.
All right, folks, when we come back next week, we're going to have, looks like Beth in the hosting chair again, and we're going to continue our essay work. So we're going to be talking about supplemental essays, first diving into that extensive Yale supplement. I think there are 8 different essays that they ask for in that application. And then we're also going to tackle the question of whether you should write honors college essays. Is it worthwhile to you? And what is that honors college experience? We will also unpack the difference between 6 letters. And I think Tara could give us a crash course, but she's not going to be back next week on EFC versus NPC, right? Some important distinctions to be had there as you're calculating what you might need to pay for any given college. Until then, welcome to the middle of October. I hope you're all getting some work done. As Lauren said in our first segment, just do the work. and you'll find that you are over the hump in no time. Thanks a lot for being here, and have a great weekend.